Hey there, hope you're good. Keith from Comma5 CRM. Going to give you a quick overview on sales in Comma5 CRM. So let's jump straight into it. Just very quickly around navigation. So if I click on here to open the sidebar, you can basically see this is how I navigate to all the different areas in my CRM. So if I wanted to go to leads, I can click on leads, or quotations, I can click on quotations, sales orders, I could view sales orders, and then products shows my price list or my products that I sell. So obviously, and then your settings. To configure sales settings, you basically go into settings and you go into sales, and there are a whole lot of sales settings you can configure. The other thing that one configures in sales setting is something called custom templates. For example, here's an example of a custom template that we may send to a client before we make a cold call to them, introducing the company. So I'll go through those in a minute. So I'll go back to the home screen and I'll hide this. The second thing is the search bar. This allows us to search for anything. So for example, if I had something called a water pump in my price list, I could type water pump and go into products, and it would bring up that product, and I could go and view the details of that specific product. Similarly, I can search for contacts. So if I search for Keith over here, you see it brings up all of the Keiths that I have in the system. Okay, so let's have a look at this Keith over here, which is showing me it's a contact. Okay. All the records in the system are configured the same. Basically, there's a details section. So at the top here, this was all the details. And we can have a whole lot of custom fields over here, as well as segmentation fields. Each record also has a full timeline, keeping a full audit trail on what happened in that particular contact, company, or quotation, or sales order. We can also assign tasks from this record. So for example, if I needed somebody to call this person, I could say call and assign a task to a specific person. So I'll assign it to myself in this instance to show you how it appears in my tasks later, and that appears under tasks. Files, the ability exists to drag and drop files. So I can see here's actually a PDF, how we help businesses grow. I can click on that and it'll actually download that PDF that sits there. Similarly, I can, for example, take this file over here, drag it and drop it, and it'll upload it to, so there we go. If I click on here, there's the PDF I've just downloaded. Okay. So this over here is the file I've just uploaded now, the JPEG. If I click on that, it'll show me that file. So images, it just shows you straight from the viewer. Okay. Any quotations? These are quotations that have previously been done for that person. Sales orders. So these are orders received from that person, and then any invoicing done for that particular person, whether you use invoicing or sales orders, depends on your specific configuration. So that's the basic overview of a record in Comma5 CRM. All of the records are the same. So if I go into quotations, and I go into this quotation over here, you'll see the layout is exactly the same. I've got the details section where it has all of the items and the details, and then it has a timeline with the full history of what's transpired. You can see when it was added, who added it, and what happened. It's also possible to make comments. So for example, I could add a comment here and say, so we have phoned, called, but was not in, as an example. And it'll then add that to the timeline. So if I go into the timeline now, you'll see that comment to say that I phoned that person and they weren't in. And same thing with all of the rest of the modules. Okay, so let's dive straight into it. Quite importantly is to understand the difference between a lead, a prospect or an opportunity, and a sales order. These are three separate sections in the CRM and three different databases. So I will send this presentation separately, but it's quite important to understand what a lead is. But quite simply, a lead is somebody you haven't done business with. They need to be qualified. A prospect is either a qualified lead or an existing customer. Once a prospect is created, or an opportunity or a quotation, they basically become a contact in your database too. And then lastly, when you receive a sales order, that contact turns into a customer. Okay, so let's jump in and go through, oopsie, wrong one. Let's jump in and go through the sales process. So firstly, a lead. Okay, so let's imagine, where do leads come from, as we discussed? We'll flick here over here. Where do leads come from? Websites, social media, referrals, marketing campaigns, etc. So the first lead we'll add today, let's assume I went to a golf day and I met a guy called Jerry McGuire from McGuire Inc. And I'll put his name in, or maybe I don't have his own mobile, maybe I've just got his email, Jerry at com. Okay, you're forced to put a lead source in to say where that lead came from. So I'll say it was from a golf day. You could say what his interest was. So he was interested in this product and that product. And I may make a note over here and say, interested in CRM, for example, whatever. Don't mind my spelling. Okay, and I say save. So that's then added that lead. Okay, so he's sitting as a lead. So what has to happen next is I need to get in touch with him and schedule a meeting or a callback, or I need to qualify or mark the lead as lost. Okay, so I'm going to show you another way. You can see now I've got 3 leads and 4 are open. The reason it's showing that they're overdue is that they need an action in the future. So you can't have a lead in the past. So for example, this guy over here, let's say I met him at the golf day and now I need to send him an email. So in fact, I won't email him. Let's say I need to call him. I call him and he's not available. So let me schedule a call back. I'll say let's a call back and let's schedule a call back for today. And I'll say I phoned him, because then that keeps a record of the fact that I phoned him. And I'll say called was not in. Okay, and then that then updates the history for that person. You can see it's taking him out of the overdue leads. So now I've only got 2 leads that need to be attended to. And it's now telling me in my desktop now that I need to follow up with this lead today. And I can see the date and time that I'm going to follow up that lead. So the next thing I'm going to do is show you how we add a lead from the website. So I've got a sample set up here. So you can see currently I've got 4 leads. If I go into here, I'm going to put another lead over here, and we're going to call this one let's say Neo Pakalani, company dimension 1. And let's say, and this is from your website. So if she goes Neo at dimension1.com and she puts a number in, whatever it is, and I'm looking for a quote on a water pump. Okay, so they submit their request from the website. Message has been sent. If I go into the CRM now, let's go into the correct CRM. You can see now I've got 5 open leads and 3 overdue. So there's the one from Neo. Hi, and if I click on that, tells me where the person was. It picks up their details and tells you exactly when it was added and where it was added from your website. Okay, so the next step now is, let's assume I've got these leads over here. I'm going to add one more lead. So in fact, what I'm going to do is I've got privileges to delete. So I'm going to, or let's assume that this guy, Keith, we called him and he said he's not interested. So I would say he's not interested because you can put whatever reason. These are all customizable reasons. Say he's not interested. I can say I phoned him, already has a supplier. Okay, don't worry about my spelling over here. Already has a supplier. And save. So it takes Keith out of the list. I'm going to add one more lead over here. And this is going to be myself actually. So I'm going to say Keith Marais, just so we know which one it is, dev IT, and I'm going to put info@developitafrica.com for the purposes of this demo. If I type in location, so I could say Khale Hill, Gaborone, and it'll pull in all the details there. And let's say Keith was from a cold call. Okay. So I've shown you what happens if a lead is lost. Now we're going to assume that this guy Keith, we want to send him the introductory email before we call him. So I click on the email address. I've got a predefined template over here, pre-cold call. It populates all of the information and I can send it. And I'll show you in a minute when I receive that mail. So let's say, for example, I sent the mail and then called Keith and he wanted to go ahead with a quotation or a meeting. So I say qualify and say I phoned him and wants a quote for 5-user CRM as an example, or whatever your product is. So you'll notice now, straight away it jumps to the quotation. And this is where I can go and say, Comma5 CRM, and I can pull on my price list. So I can click on my price list here, and I can select from a number of items. So I actually don't have Comma5 CRM in here at the moment. But let's say I wanted to add that item, which was labor. So that comes from my price list. I can change the margin over here, or I could have fixed margins depending on how you work. Let me add a new line here, and I'm going to say C5, give a new one, C5 CRM, Comma5 CRM, 5-user base, and who the supplier is. So it's Comma5. And putting in the supplier just helps you when you get the quotation to understand, if in case somebody else is processing it, to understand where or who the supplier was and how this was costed. So let's say, for example, my unit cost is $10, and I'm marking up by 20%, and they need 5 users. I can put in some notes there, and I can say, quote as per your request. Okay. And I then save. Simple as that. By the way, expected date is the date in which you expect to get the order. So this is a very important date. So there's also different stages here we can configure. And this expected date can also change. So if I expected to get the order this week, I could change it to this week. And I'm going to go ahead and save this quotation. Now, I can quickly preview the quotation, make sure everything on there is correct. Yes, it all looks good. And if I'm happy, I could mail it straight to the customer. And also I could select a template to accommodate this, or to attach to this quote. But for now, I'm just going to say, Dear Keith, please find attached quote. Okay. And send. Okay, so now what's happened is if I go in here and I have a look at my open quotations, you'll see there's the quotation sitting there. So it's gone from a lead to a quotation. Also, if I search my customer database now, you'll see it's added a new contact for Keith Marais automatically. So it's moved that Keith Marais out of leads and put that person into contacts. So let me quickly open my email to show you what the email is going to look like. Okay, while we're waiting for the email, just one sec there. So a couple of scenarios here with a quotation, exactly the same thing is I could have a quotation that needs to be followed up today. So let's say I was expecting this quotation today. So I go and edit. In fact, I don't even have to edit. I can just go, in fact, let me show you here. Expected date, and let's say this was today. We'll call later. Okay. So I've just heard the quotation coming in there. And if I go in here, this was the first mail that's sent out. Dear Keith, blah, 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 blah. And it puts in all of the custom fields. So you can see it puts in my name automatically, puts in the company automatically. And you can put in links. So this is an example of a email template. This is an example of the quotation that was sent. If I double click on the quotation, okay, I haven't put a logo, but I have put my signature, and the client can go online and accept the quotation if they like. Accept, put in their comments, and that'll go into the system. Okay, so I just want to go back to the CRM here and show you a couple of the sales statistics. So the first thing it does is keep track of leads. So how many leads were added, where your leads came from. You can see leads added per rep, leads activity. So for example, on the phone section here, if I click here, it'll show you all of the leads I phoned in a certain period or a certain time. Also my lead conversion. So of the leads I added, how many were won, how many were lost. And you can see those same statistics by rep, very important. You can see leads qualified, where they came from, and this will help you quantify your marketing spend. And then lost leads per reason. Why are you losing leads? So this is a leads dashboard. These are all customizable dashboards. We've got another one for sales analytics, for example. So something I haven't shown you, but it's able to manage sales targets. So this is showing you sales orders, orders per rep, sales pipeline, quite important. Obviously, when you add quotations, it automatically builds your sales pipeline, pipeline per rep, quotes added, etc., etc. And the same kind of statistics. And in fact, these are the same statistics we had in the lead section. So as I mentioned, all of these dashboards are customizable. This is an example of a dashboard the sales rep might see. So he can see overdue leads that need to be followed up today, overdue quotations. He also has a view on his leads and his quotations. So the system is configured according to how you want it. So not much else to show you other than if I have a quotation now and the client accepts it, I say convert, I say it was won, and I can put a note there going ahead. This automatically jumps to something called a sales order, where I can go and adjust I can say when I expect to completely deliver this order, and I can put here his order number, VB1205, and save that. And that now creates a sales order and sends an email to the customer thanking him for his order. So in terms of the sales process, something quite important to remember, leads you don't need to use, but quite useful to use. You could easily just use quotations. Similarly, I can go into the settings here, and I can, not here. I can go into the settings, and I can enable something called opportunities. So opportunities really is hardcore pipeline management, which we recommend for bigger companies. But what it does is it really allows you to create opportunities without creating a quotation. The other thing it allows you to do is to create multiple quotations for an opportunity. So for example, if I had an option 1, I could go and create a quotation. So let's say I was going to select that item. And if I go back to that opportunity now, I can add a quotation and I can say option 2, and I can put in whatever items I wanted. So let's go and select a different item, or a couple of items you can also do. So you can see it's really quick to create a quotation, and there you go. So now if I go back into my opportunities, you'll see I've got that opportunity open. So this goes into my pipeline, and it just tells me that there's 2 quotations attached to that opportunity. So that's the real advantage of opportunities. Having said that, we typically don't switch opportunities on for smaller businesses because it makes sense to just do them using quotations. So it is quite possible to take a lead. So let's go into our leads here. Oopsie, leads. Try again, leads. It's quite possible to take a lead, qualify them. In other words, I'm converting them to a quotation. Going ahead, whatever comment you want to make. And I could say over here, radio link, and I could save that without actually putting in a value. So that's quite possible. And if I wanted to add a value, I basically go and add the items to the bottom. So that still puts that item into my pipeline. So you can see there's Jeremiah's for the radio link. It's just showing a value of 0. So it'll be in your pipeline and then you can add a value once you add the products. So a couple of other things to mention with respect to leads. It's quite possible to import leads. If you're dealing with cold calling, for example, handy to import a number of leads at a time. It's also from anywhere in the system. You can export quite easily. So if I wanted to, let's say, for example, I went into my list of quotations here and I wanted to export that list. I just click export and there you go. I can export it straight to Excel. Okay, so a couple of more emails have come in from the system. Let me show you some of the sample emails. So all of the emails, and there you go. There's a list of the actual quotations from the system. Okay, so you can actually export from anywhere to Excel if you need. Let's open my email here. See there, this is telling me that an opportunity has been assigned. So it's also possible to add an opportunity or a lead and assign it to somebody else. Let's see over here. This is what happens when you receive a lead from a website or from the website. You basically get an email, you click open lead, and it'll open that lead directly in your CRM. So I can see what's happening. So let's say I spoke to this lady here. She's interested to go ahead. Wants quote. I say save. And water pump. And in this instance now, I can't remember the part number, so I'm just going to say water pump and search. And there you go, it finds it. And I add water pump, and let's say, for example, she needed 3 of those. Save the water pump. I can add my signature and say save. So it's literally that simple to create a quotation or opportunity. The important thing is that you can see in the source over here, it's remembered where that opportunity actually came from. It came from a lead that came from my website. And if I go into the history, obviously, I could trace that right back to the converted lead. You can see there, a lead was added and that date and time, all the comments made, and so and so. And that really brings to a close the sales overview. Once again, to mention that all of the dashboards are customizable, so we can really show anything you need to see. I'm not going to go into these too much now. It's also possible to configure sales targets. Let me quickly show you an example of a real life scenario where we've been running a campaign through XPO. So it's been running since, you can see over here, just since last month. So 172 leads have been added last month, 126 this month, and we're tracking the last 7 days. So our goal is to add 20 leads a day. I could go back to say, show me the last 15 days. And there you go. It shows me my performance over the last 15 days, obviously including weekends. I can see the leads added per rep, where the leads have been coming from. Our goal also is to make at least 20 calls a day, so I can see exactly how many phone calls are made, how many emails are made. And then this is our lead conversion statistics showing us. And if I click on here, I can see who were those leads that were actually qualified. So it's those 3 companies. And all of the graphs in the drill down or in the dashboards you can drill down on. So if I wanted to see who were all the people that weren't interested, so I could remarket to them, or those that had an existing supplier. So let's go not interested. I could easily go and select all of these and send them an email, for example, or export them to a list to do something with them. So feel free to let us know if there's anything or any more information you need or anything you left out. But in terms of best practice and the sales process, I think it's quite important to remember this: lead to prospect to sales order. If you don't want to use leads, we can add a stage in prospects where the first stage is lead, etc., etc., etc. And we can just use prospects or opportunities instead of using all 3, but we do recommend this full process. Thanks very much. Chat soon.